You're listening to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. The show that gives pastors and church leaders the clarity they need to protect their people, property, and ministry.
Welcome back to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. I'm your host, Ron Wadley with Insurance for Texans. We help church leaders protect their people and property with wisdom and clarity. Today's episode focuses on a question that many church leaders are asking these days. Who is actually insuring churches in Texas? For the last couple of years, churches across Texas have been opening letters they never expected to see. Non-renewal notices, coverage reductions, sudden changes that feel abrupt and personal, even though they aren't. Hailstorms and weather losses finally caught up with insurance companies that had underpriced risk for years, and churches were caught in the middle. I recently spoke with Theodore, a church leader in Belton. His church wasn't reckless and didn't ignore the maintenance of their property. They also hadn't filed a string of claims. But when renewal time came around, finding property insurance felt almost impossible. Quotes were scarce, terms were tight, prices were painful. Theodore started hearing similar stories from other church leaders. It left them all wondering about who was actually helping Texas churches to get insurance these days. Before we even began to talk about companies, we had to reset the conversation. Insurance isn't about satisfying a lender or checking a box. It exists so that one bad moment doesn't erase decades of faithful service. That's why property and liability protection matter so much for Texas churches. Property coverage has been the place where church insurance has fallen apart. Due to churches having large roofs and being in hail-prone geography, underwriting for Texas church insurance has gotten tighter, and some companies have stopped writing church insurance in Texas altogether. Liability coverage, on the other hand, is what keeps a church financially stable when something unexpected happens. Injuries, allegations, legal claims. These moments don't just threaten budgets, they threaten reputations and leadership. The good news is liability protection is still widely available and relatively affordable compared to property coverage, but it still has to be structured correctly. Once Theodore understood that foundation, the picture became clearer. Despite everything you may be hearing, there are companies insuring churches in Texas right now. In fact, since last year, more carriers have cautiously stepped back into the space. Coverage is easier to source than it was 12 months ago, even if prices haven't come down. The real difference isn't just the company. It's how churches are accessing those companies. Some churches work with direct writers who work for captive insurance agencies. These agents sell one product and one product only. When everything about a church is clean and simple, that can work. But if there's a claims history, an older building, or higher risk location, options dry up fast. Many of these carriers simply say no and move on. That's where Theodore had been getting stuck. Independent agents operate differently. They aren't tied to one insurance company. They can work with multiple carriers, sometimes layering coverage, sometimes pairing different policies together, sometimes finding solutions that aren't obvious at first glance. In a market like Texas, where hail risk and non-renewals are common, flexibility matters. This didn't mean Theodore suddenly found cheap insurance. It meant he found possible insurance. It meant his church wasn't boxed into a single yes or no answer. This is exactly why we created our True Texas Church Insurance Program. It's not a product pulled off a shelf. It's a process. It starts with real questions about buildings, ministries, activities, history, and future plans. From there, we negotiate coverage intentionally with the companies that are still willing and able to protect Texas churches. If your church would like that kind of commitment to finding the right coverage, connect with our church insurance team at insurancefortexans.com. And if you would like a better understanding of church insurance overall, get a copy of our book, The Promise of Certainty, at thepromiseofcertainty.com. I'm Ron Wadley, and this has been Faith Stewardship and Insurance Protecting Texas Churches. Until next time, remember, church insurance is better when you work with the right partner.
Thanks for listening to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance. Until next time, remember, insurance isn't just about policies. It's about safeguarding the mission God has called you to lead.